Hello everybody, this is Russell at dieselgiant.com, and I've got a little bit different video for you today. It's not diesel related, it is lawnmower related. You know, sometimes life just throws you a curveball, and the poor snapper mower, well, the engine locked up. Yes, this is the traditional, made famous in the movie Forest Gump, snapper rear engine rider. This is a 1983 model, 28-inch cut. It's my personal mower, and the engine locked up. And I searched on the internet for some good repower videos, which there's really not any that takes you from start to finish. So what I'm going to do today is take this locked up engine and replace it with a brand new Briggs and Stratton Intech 12.5 horsepower. I'm going to show you how to do the job from start to finish. I'm going to show you how to hook the wiring up properly. This does have recoil and electric start, which will remain on the new engine. This is the old L-head engine. This is actually an out of production 8 horsepower power built. Power built was the upgraded consumer version engine that had an aluminum bore. The Intech, which we're going to replace, has a cast iron sleeve and is much more heavy duty. It's also an overhead valve engine, so we're going to have to do a little bit of fabrication to get the engine to fit. But I wanted to show you guys how to do this from start to finish, and yes, we're locked up solid. Alright, so this mower originally came equipped with the Tecumseh. I believe it was an 8 horsepower on it also. This engine that's on here is about 8 years old. It was running fine, and it locked up. So we're going to go start to finish, and the first thing we want to do is clean the engine. Now, I've already done this yesterday. I've cleaned all the, it had mounds of just grass and everything on there. We want to take note of our wiring diagram. That's actually real life. We've got a battery cable that goes to the starter, and we've also got this hook up here. We've got our hook up here. This is the cutoff switch when you turn the engine off. We've also got our throttle cable. We've got an interlock switch which has been disconnected for years. This mower used to be my dad's, so I don't know what he did to it. And we've also got our fuel hookup for the tank. Now, depending on the year of mower that you have, whether it's a snapper or not, I got this engine, this nice, beautiful Briggs and Stratton. I got it from Tulsa Engine Warehouse. I'll put a little bit of information in the end of this film. And I talked to Gary. He's great. He got me recommended the correct engine for this application. Give them a call, and they'll set you up with whatever you need. Shipping on that huge box was only $8.99, and they pretty much had the best price that I found. So I'm going to go ahead and get the mower set up and show you what we're going to do first. Okay, depending again on the model year of mower that you have, you want to make sure this fuel cap or the vent is closed, and also the supply right there is closed. And we're going to remove the line here for the fuel tank. Okay, with our fuel tank removed, again, your fuel tank may be behind the seat, or if you have a different model, an older model, it could be out to the side, but nevertheless, take the fuel tank off. Next step, we're going to remove the wire to the starter and also the connector wire here. Now we'll disconnect the cutoff wire at the throttle assembly. Since I can't get the wiring harness here out from under the engine until I remove the engine, it is disconnected, but it will just sit here loose. Disconnect the throttle cable. Loosen this bolt and disconnect the wire from here. just got a little hook in it, and of course that attached in the hole there. Now we're going to loosen the 4 mounting bolts that hold the engine to the frame. There's one there, 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 and in there. So depending on how tight your blade belt is, you may need to remove the belt off here. Usually going to have to loosen this bolt here and remove this guard. The belt will slip over and you can get the pull the engine out, and I'll show you what that looks like when the engine's out. Okay, with the engine now out, sitting on the ground, that belt right there goes around the pulley, which is right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this engine, put it up where we can measure the distance where the disc goes, which I'll show you how to do. We'll clean that up and then start to go ahead and get our new engine mocked up on there. Okay, because this engine deck is so nasty and greasy, I sprayed a little bit of citrus cleaner. I'm going to let it sit and then I'm going to squirt it off with the garden hose. Okay, this is the drive disc, and this is the pulley that we were struggling to get the fan blade belt out. Now this pulley and drive disc assembly has to sit on the shaft, which is right here, to the engine, a certain distance. Actually, the drive disc here has to be a certain distance from the bottom, which is 3 3/4 inches from the bottom of the inside of the lawnmower frame. So because the shafts right here are the exact same depth, what I'm going to do is just use a gauge and measure from the inside of here to here, and that should get us in the proper position. Now the way that you get this out, there are 2 Allen keys there and one on the other side. Now since this engine is locked up, I'm going to have to rotate the engine, physically rotate it over, because this won't spin obviously anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and take my measurements. This is going to get us in the ballpark. When I get the engine on, I'll go ahead and adjust it exactly to 3 3/4 inches from here to the bottom of the case, which is just about here. If you wanted to get real technical, I guess you could measure the thickness of the case and add it to here, but it's got to be pretty precise, or the wheel that drives the transmission won't mesh with this correctly. So I'm going to go ahead and measure that, and I'm going to remove the Allen keys. There's one there, and you can see the end of the other one right there. There's also a slotted keyway in here, which I will show you, and you'll get a better view of that on the new engine. Okay, here's a shot of the old engine with the shaft and the keyway. That keyway will just pop right out, and this is the drive disc with the pulley. Now the original one, I had just replaced this. The original one was aluminum, and this pulley right here and this collar would unscrew and you could just replace the pulley. But apparently Snapper went to this Chinese made steel one. So also the 2 Allen keys here and here, see there's a slot in there that corresponds to the keyway right there, and my old one had both of these Allen screws. One was there and one was right there in line. So they assured me at the Snapper dealer that it was fine, that was the new style, and it would not slide off. But anyway, so I'm going to take this key out, then I'm going to go ahead and get the new engine up here, and we're going to set the depth on the drive disc. Okay, so here is the replacement engine. Yes, that is a catalytic converter, and that is coming off. Not because I'm not emissions conscious, but it will not fit on the mower like that. I'm going to, I've got another snapper muffler that I bought for this application. Alright, so this is the keyway right here. This is a standard shaft length. So again, we'll measure from the bottom of here. I measured my deck. My deck is about almost 3 millimeters thick. So I'm going to add 3/4 inches. I'm going to go 3 and 3/4 inches, and then add 3 millimeters, and that should get us exactly where we want to be. But again, on your mower, just make sure to measure. And you may have to, when you get the engine installed, flip it on its back and do it the way that the manual said. Underneath, it's kind of difficult, but this way should get us exactly where we need to be. I've got my depth set to where I think it's almost exact. I just took this position here, measured out 3 and 3/4 inches, plus added the thickness of the case. So I think that should be pretty much almost exact. I've got my tightened key lock there and right there. So what I'm going to do now is, this engine has obviously it's got more wires than the other one. I've got this wire here, and I've also got a wiring harness that's got a red and a white wire there. So I'm also probably going to have to move this starter over. You can change the different positions where you want the starter, but I'm going to test fit the engine. One little key here is, I want to show you when I press the clutch in. See that wheel going down? That's the friction disc that rides on that disc. That's how the engine gets power, or how the transmission gets power. So if this is in the up position, you're not going to have as much clearance. So I'm going to put a bag of sand right there just to hold that clutch in, since I don't have a helper. And I'm going to go ahead and test fit the engine. What I suspect is, on some of the earlier model snappers, which this is a 1983 vintage, it has these fender flares. The later models don't have that. I may have some problem, some clearance. Definitely that muffler's got to come off. I've got another snapper muffler that's thinner, and then it'll come out and go back this way, similar to the old muffler here, how it wrapped around. So got everything cleaned up. This is good. It's a lawnmower. Remember, it's not a show car. So I'm going to go ahead and test fit it, and we'll see what we've got. I also want to show you one more thing before I put the engine on. If you look at the bolt pattern, it looks like it's square, but it's not. These two bolts right here, I think they're about 7.5 inches apart. These two bolts right here are about 6.5 inches, so it's not a perfect square. So that's about almost 6 inches, and this one is about 7 inches or so. They wobble around a little bit, so just make sure, so I've seen people put these engines in all kinds of different ways. Don't necessarily look at the way the starter is. Like I said, you can clock the starter at a 6 or 9 o'clock position, and so I'm going to go ahead and put the engine on, and we'll show you what it looks like. We got here. This is a common problem, like I told you earlier in the video. This fender flare is in the way. The engine is a little bit wider from side to side than the old engine. So I've marked where I'm going to have to cut the flare out. I hate to do it, but there's no alternative. The engine has to come over. And I took the muffler off, the gigantic muffler, and the one that I bought from Snapper will come out and come back around like that. There's just no room. You don't want it. You don't want the exhaust coming out hitting the bag if you use that. So the muffler that I have is this, and it's just going to fit just like this. Now I'm also going to have to cut, if you see I'm hitting on that fender flare right there, so I'm going to have to cut a little bit, unfortunately, so this will mate up properly. But this is just what happens when you've got a custom job putting an engine on it that never was on there. The new mowers, they don't have the flares like that, and they're designed for it. You can get this engine on the new mower, but this is an older frame, so I'm going to go ahead and cut what I've marked. That flare will be gone, and then put the engine back on, and hopefully it'll drop right on the mounts. So what I've done is, like I said on earlier, I took my grinding wheel. I just used got an air drill, or an air grinder with a little wheel on it. You can use an electric one if you want, and just cut out this piece right here. I rounded the edges off. I'll take a Dremel and clean it up a little bit more so it doesn't have any burrs on it, but that's what you're going to have to do. You know, these overhead valve engines are a little bit wider. They've got a lot more power, but as I said before, I'll have to cut a little bit over here to get the muffler to fit if I decide to use that muffler. I may see if I can rig something up, but right now our main priority is to get the engine in. Now the other problem that I had is the gas tank that fits in here. It's hitting the air cleaner cover. So I took the air cleaner cover off and wanted to see how much clearance I have without it on. I certainly am going to leave it on, so I'm probably going to have to bend that mount if I can. It's quite substantial. So first things first, we'll get the engine in there. Once that fits, then I'll worry about how to do the gas tank, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so you know, this is actually a two-person job. Trying to hold, it's actually quite difficult trying to hold this up. You know, these bolts wobble around, but of course, like I said before, all these Briggs and Stratton have the same bolt pattern. So here's where we're at. We've got the engine on there. I'm gonna probably take a little bit more of that off, but the clearance on this side looks really good. Okay, everything lines up. Now the problem here now is that put this cover back on, I'm gonna have a problem because it's really tight. So I'm gonna see if I can get the cover to go on. So here's the air filter cover. It may... Alright, I'm going to do this without holding the camera. I think I can get it on there without having to do anything with this bracket. After that, what we're going to do is I'm going to look at my my muffler over here. You know, can't have it exiting out the back like that. I could make a smaller muffler if I wanted to, but I'm going to take the muffler off the old one and see if it all will work here, so it'll come out to the side. So let me get that cover on and I'll show you what I'm going to do with the muffler. Okay, so you see now the cover fits on here. So in retrospect, all you have to do is remove this cover when you put the engine on. Then the cover will slide a little bit. It's a little bit tight, but what I did was I took this crowbar and I stuck it down in here, and I just wedged up on this, which didn't change this gap, but it bent the bracket just a hair. That's about, I don't know, 1/4 inch, which is plenty, as long as it's not touching the engine. Okay, so that's fine. I don't have to mess with this bracket anymore. A little bit of bending and it fits perfect. I'll be able to remove this cover without any trouble to change the air filter. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's work on the muffler. Okay, this was probably the most time-consuming part of the job. I went ahead and figured out where the muffler was supposed to go, and then in relation to the fender, I had to notch it and then grind it out. So this is the new snapper muffler that you have to buy separately if you don't want the muffler facing backwards, which if you use your bag on this model, it would end up destroying the bag. So it bolts right up. It's got 2 Torx bits here, and then there's another support bracket here. I had to remove this assembly right here and mark where I wanted to grind it with my wheel, and then it all fit back up fine. So the next thing that we've got to do is I've got to go ahead and put the nuts on the bolts that hold the engine. The engine is still loose. I've got to go up under the mower and hook the fan blade up to the disc that's on the bottom of here, and then we've got to figure out the wiring. Obviously, this is the wiring harness that's on the mower. This goes to the starter, and this engine has it's got more wires than my other one. So one of them's the alternator wire. We also have to figure out how to hook up. If you look on the old engine, it had this is the wiring for the cutoff. If you want the engine to cut off with the throttle, when you put it all the way to the stop mode, and the key. So we'll have to hook that wire and clip up. It goes right here. It's the same exact setup. We'll hook this throttle cable in there, and remember, this wire hooks into here. This, I believe, was, like I said before, the interlock for the seat. And have to figure out which one of these 2 wires I need to hook up. And I'm going to do a little bit of research and find out exactly which one it is, so you guys don't have to do that. Okay, so if you remember, we had a wire set up with a plug here and here. So I went ahead and took those out, transferred it over to the new engine, and we also had a wire, a black coil wire, that fits. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little connector right there. Now, the problem is this is the black wire that I disconnected from that connector. One end goes to the coil, the other end bolts to the assembly on the throttle. Here's the problem. This new engine has the black wire with a butt terminal that comes out the back, and the wire's too short to go around, so I didn't want to splice it. So I took off the bolts that go to this shroud, and I'm going to lift that up. I'm going to remove the air cleaner, and I'm going to use my old wire, route it around, and then it will go right there. So this is the same assembly. It just pops out. You've got to be very careful. It's plastic. It's got little ears on it. I've already hooked this up, so we're good to go on that. That black wire is what cuts the engine off. I can cut the engine off with the key, if you have a key on yours, or I can cut it off when it goes to stop. Now, depending on which engine you had, you notice this says choke and stop is opposite. Tecumseh, the original engine that was on here, had a vertical up and down linkage, and the Briggs and Stratton have horizontal, so it's going to be backwards, but it's no big deal. It was like that on the old engine, so I just know that this area where it says stop is full fast. It's just opposite of where it stands. So I'm going to go ahead and take the shroud off, plug the old wire into the coil, and route it back around here. I've got hoses still connected to the shroud, but I removed the air cleaner and it slides right off. So here is our coil right here. Here's the shutoff wire, so I'm going to disconnect it. I'm going to have to use 2 hands. Disconnect it. I'm going to plug the old one in and route it around that way. Alright, so I got the coil wire plugged in, and I took a little route right here. There's a little like a vacuum hose. I have no idea what this is for, but I took 2 small zip ties, and so it would route down on this. This way it won't rub on anything when the engine's running. And if you'll notice, there's a razor thin little wire right here, right there. I have no idea what that's for, but do not break it. So You may or may not have to do this on your engine, but if you do, just know that the wire that goes to the coil, that is the shut-off wire, cuts the engine off. So I'm going to put the shroud back on and hook it up to the assembly on the throttle. Okay, so I went ahead and put the fuel tank back on. It just slides down in the bracket. It's just held in by pressure. I connected the fuel line. I left the old filter in. It's got another one. This is a fuel pump, by the way, so it will actually pump the fuel out. So I've got my wires hooked up here. This wire right here goes to the switch, and I've got my other wires that were hooked up. So now we can turn the engine off by either doing that, or we can use the key, just like it's supposed to be. I still have to figure out what to do with these wires. This wire right here, according to the snapper wiring diagram, is for my electric push button start. So on the old engine it was hooked to a red wire, but I have a red and white wire, and I'm not sure exactly what the white wire is for, so when I find that out, I'll let you guys know. Okay, I want to show you guys a little bit of research. You mowers all the time probably know this, but the charging wire on, at least on the Briggs and Stratton, alright, this was the old engine obviously, and this of course was the wire that charged the battery. And the way that you know this is because this lump right here, that's a diode in there. Okay, so on our new mower, now I've taken the pigtail off that was on here, but remember, this is the wire that used to go, comes from the harness, and this used to go on that red wire that I just showed you on the old mower. And you see that this has two wires. It's got a red and a black one, and the red wire has the diode in it, so that's the charging wire. So this connector would go on that side. Now remember, this engine can be used for a lot of different applications, not just mowers and not specifically to snappers. So I suspect that that black wire right there is maybe an auxiliary. Sometimes these have AC, put out AC current, but I'm not sure, and I'll let you guys know when I talk to Gary over at Tulsa Engine Warehouse. But anyway, I'm mildly confident that that's the correct wire, or red wire. And what's going to happen is I'm going to start the engine, and we're going to see if it's got any DC voltage output. If that's the case, then we know that that is the correct connector. So I went ahead and make sure you use the correct oil. I mean, these mowers in the summer call for straight 30 weight. There's no reason to put anything else like 10W40 or anything else. Just use the right oil. For break-in, this is what I'm going to use. After I break the engine in, then I'm going to swap it over to the Amsoil 30 weight. So I've got a mower that I've been in our family since 1984, and it's using Amsoil. It has the original engine. So let me go ahead and get this thing fired up and let you hear it run. Runs absolutely perfect. And yes, it was correct. That is the charging wire. Verified my meter. Put down about 16 volts, 17 volts. Alright, well, I've spent about 2 hours or so cutting the lawn, and all I can say is, wow, this engine on here, you know, on paper it's about 50% more horsepower, but this thing is unbelievable. I don't know why Snapper ever put an 8 horsepower engine on one of these lawnmowers. You can get up to a 14.5 on the new ones, but this thing is unbelievably strong. I cut the grass really low this time and did not even remotely hesitate or bog like the old 8 horsepower would. So I'm going to put the specs to what the part number is for the muffler. Also, well, here, I can get this on here. This engine is a model 219907. The type is 3029. It's a generation 5. I'll put the part number to the sorry, I've got grass everywhere. Put the part number to that snapper muffler. If you're repowering one of these, it's similar to this. You know, I've already showed you what you need to do. Later models, they don't have the fender flares, but you're still going to need to have this muffler exit out to the side, because if you use your bagger and it exits out to the rear, it's going to disintegrate the bagger. Also, the huge muffler that came on it, I don't know if I said maybe it was a catalytic converter, but this is not a California spec engine. So I believe the California spec ones come with a cat. That was not. It was just a huge box, and this shield would not have been able to fit on there. So this is a heat shield to keep the plastic in the bagger from disintegrating. So anyway, this project's been a lot of fun. I'm very, very, very pleased with the performance. All I need to do now is get me a battery. And I didn't show you guys how easy a pull started. I've already run out of gas, but about half a pull is all this thing takes. It's got a little fuel pump there, so once you pull it a couple times initially, it'll prime itself, and just unbelievable. Unbelievable. Very, very pleased. So thumbs up to Briggs and Stratton. And you guys, if you need a new mower, don't get a new mower, just repower it.